So tonight, what I'm going to do is try to wrap up the demonstration I was doing. It was Samus jumping off of a box, just to sort of close it off so we can kind of put a bow on it and sort of move on. Now, a bit of a disclaimer here. I was not going for gold. This is just something I was doing to sort of teach the mechanics. I was sort of keeping it super simple on purpose so that it was very straightforward. In future demonstrations, I won't be as basic, and I would probably be a little bit more to elaborate a little bit more and make it a little bit more exciting and push the envelope with the poses. All right. So let's take a look and just play it and see how that looks and feels. So yeah, let's go through the basic motions. So basically, I'm just going to take a look at this and see if there's anything that I feel like I want to modify, and then see if we can kind of wrap it up a little bit, so that we can kind of call it done. Again, I don't know if I wouldn't look at this and give it any awards. That's for sure. It's not terrible, but I mean, it's it's getting the job done. For a demo animation, it's not bad, but yeah, it's not really fulfilling too many fantasies at this point. I'm going to just clean it up a little bit here so I can sort of see it a little bit more clearly without all the clutter of the control curves. I could have done that over here too. Obviously, it's probably a better way to do it. Turn off the visibility here. So one of my biggest issues is how there's a lot of twinning here. Especially on the upper body, the arms feel very twinny. The legs aren't so bad. They could be better. That's one thing I'll probably work on tonight a little bit. I don't like what the this arm is doing here. The blue, kind of the cannon arm, the right arm. It's just wobbling around a bit too much, so I'll probably want to stabilize that, add a little bit more drag. It makes it feel not very heavy, right? An object that's heavy doesn't change direction a lot. It tends to, like, when it moves, it wants to move, and it resists change. Once it's moving, it wants to continue moving. It won't be able to just kind of change direction repeatedly, and you can see it moving around and kind of wobbling around a lot up there. So I'm going to try to stabilize that. It would be easier to do that probably with IK, but I'm not going to bother trying to get into IK-FK switching because I don't know what this rig has as far as that's concerned. So I'm not going to bother getting fancy. I'll just keep it the way it is and just manage it with FK because I think, I'm going to probably have better luck doing it that way. What else do I want to change? Let's see here. It's not too bad. The final pose is very not exciting, just like the first pose is really not exciting, like very default. That's probably my biggest issue. I mean, when we animate for games, we're obviously going to be coming in and out of idle poses, and those idle poses are going to need to be a hell of a lot more dynamic than this. The auto pose is, of course, the default pose the character is always going to end up in when there's nothing happening, thus the fact that we call it an idle. We would want to make sure that those poses are communicating a good sense of character and intention and context. Like, we want to load it with as much stuff as possible because it's very difficult to give a lot of that kind of extra nuance to animations in a game because usually it's like the character's too busy running or jumping, and it's a little hard to show a lot of characterization. It's possible, but it's a little bit more difficult. Idling is the time where that is like pretty much it's prime time for that kind of sort of visual communication to the player. So that's where this is definitely failing the most, is there. I could take a stab at, just for fun, playing with an animation layer to fix that, just to show people. Like I feel like I don't know why, but lately I'm encountering a lot of people who have got very little to no experience with animation layers. If you're out there and you're learning how to animate, or even if you've been animating for a really long time and you've been kind of thinking, yeah, I should probably get around to learning how to use animation layers, literally stop it. Stop. Just start using them right away because it's going to change your life. Animation layers are like literally the cat's meow, and they are going to 100% make your life better. 1000%. Do it, because I teach for ianimate, and so I'm often encountering these people that have, sometimes been animating for years, and they're just like, I've never used animation layers. And then even on the job, then the number of times that I actually find people that are just like, I'm just like, put a layer on and fix it. And they're like, oh yeah, I really don't know how to use layers. I'm like, how is that possible? It is should be your go-to. It is just the fixer of everything. So I will use that tonight as a quick way to show how animation layers can be used to not just add. I use layers for extra detail. I might do a little bit of that tonight as well, depending on how much time I have. But sometimes I'll add like, little inconsistencies and stuff like this. And sometimes a little bit more drag, because it's a little easier to add that on top of an animation rather than trying to go in and like deal with all the keys that are there when there's a lot of density. There's a lot of density in the keys. So another thing that's very useful for it is another really great thing that it's useful for is making not micro changes like I often use it for, but I use it for macro changes, like changing overall posture in many ways. Very, 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 very useful. I'll just sort of start picking away at things that I don't like and start making it better. Let's fix those ugly arms first. So let's worry about first this arm, because I want to make sure that I prioritize it because of its heaviness. I want to make sure that I kind of get an idea of what I'm going to do with that arm, and that'll give me a little bit more of an idea as to what to do with the other arm. So let's shoot it up here. I don't want it to go up and then back down and then up again. I think that's part of the problem. So let's try instead. I'm going to try to copy that pose back here like this. That didn't work. How come? Oh, I see why. Because it's twisted. That should still work. Oh, yeah, I see. Because it's not the only pose. I see. So it's the shoulder that I need to, hold on. So I'll just grab, the shoulder is this. Yeah, okay, good. So let's see here. So what I want to do is tone it down a little bit here. There, so you can see that I'm not shooting it up as far, so it's going to stabilize it a lot more right away. Another thing to note here is the shoulder orient. I think I turned that off. And I think basically what that does is if I move the upper body around and stuff, the shoulder, see how the shoulder, like the shoulder is staying in its own world space here. This is, in my opinion, a really good way to work with shoulders in FK, because it allows for the kind of a stabilization effect. FK can be a little problematic to make it feel like you can sort of have it stabilize and not be flying around and just following the body everywhere and having its own sense of weight. That's why a lot of people will use IK instead, but then it comes up with all these other problems. I find a good compromise when you don't need to have the hand planted on something is just to make sure that check the rig to see if it's got a way of changing the way that the shoulder is oriented. Sometimes some rigs will give you even different spaces to switch between, which is pretty freaking awesome. But this, it looks like it was an orient. It was either on or off. Basically, it's following the character, the rest of the skeleton, or it's not. So that's why this should be a relatively easy thing to stabilize, because it won't move unless I tell it to move, basically, or rotate unless I tell it to rotate. So I could probably, what I'll do is have it continue to float up. Oops, float up a little bit here, because it feels weird if it just gets stuck. So it kind of comes up. There we go. I could probably come up a little higher. And I'll twist it up a little bit like this as well. There we go. So now you can see it's more progressive. It's not bouncing. It's not going up, down, up, down, up, down. It's going up and then down. There needs to be a lot of dampening on a heavy object. If we want that arm to feel like a cannon, we need to treat it as such. It cannot just, and I would imagine it probably needs a little bit more drag as well. And we can look at that so that it's not just necessarily getting out in front of, it's probably going to need a drag. So this is probably part of the problem here as well. It's probably just too far forward. It's let it kind of, there we go. See, so now what's happening is it's dragging. It gets a lot. It's much later to the party basically, rather than it just feeling like. Okay, so another thing I can do is actually show a little bit more drag specifically on that movement. So as this arm starts to shoot forward, I can sort of introduce like a kind of a rotational lag to it. What I mean by that is this elbow here can whip back. Let me hold on. First, let me make sure that. There we go. And so I will cause this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this arm right here, and I'm going to drag it like this, right? So right off the bat, I'm using that elbow to help sort of sell, and I can really hyperextend it here to really make it feel like it drags, okay? And then what I can do is take this key here and probably, I'm even trying to get rid of it here, see if I can see what that does. So it's give a little more time to sort of swing forward like that. I think this needs to be a little less like this and a little bit more like that. So you can start to see what I'm doing there. See that? So as that upper arm and shoulder drag and pull forward to try to yank that big heavy cannon, the arm will straighten naturally. And by delaying this, I'm going to try to make it a little bit straighter for even longer, like this. Right? Because it's kind of hyperextended, like I said. It'll end up feeling like it's kind of being pulled a little bit, right? Resisting sort of change. And then once it gets moving up, it wants to continue moving up, and then it's going to drag like this. So what I can do here is on the way down, play with this and bring this arm up like it's dragging that heavy weight behind it. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Right? So I'm going to get this feeling that it kind of drags like this. And then I'm going to definitely ram this down a little bit faster, probably. This. Because once it gets going, it wants to go. And then I'll need to do this as well. Oops. So now it kind of feels like it's a little late there, so I'll do this. Probably a little bit too much there, so what I can do is just add a little bit of a breakdown there to kind of tell it when it should start to bend. And then once it should probably be a little faster there. And then this one should probably go all the way, swing all the way back. So let's watch this and just take a look at that arm now, see if I'm doing a better job selling weight. If you notice, there's a big difference now on that arm. A lot more dampening going on there. It like feels a little heavier. I probably would need to deal with that settle. It's a little fast there, as you can see. So I would need to probably, if we really want to sell that weight, technically what I would need to do is as that arm swings back like this, it would even drag the torso a little bit. The torso would get pulled, and then Samus would have to like pull it back to stabilize. They would have to put effort into really controlling that arm. The biggest thing about a heavy object is you need to see this tug of war, this relationship between the pull and the push. What's driving the heavy weight? There's always this sort of switching. Like I can pull it a weight, but then if I pull it too hard, that weight will then pull me, because it's like I've pulled it to the point where there's too much momentum and it has too much of an inertia. It has the power to pull me now. So it's basically why when you watch someone carrying something heavy, they're trying to baby it. They don't want to move it or yank it too fast, because if you do that, if you manage to get it moving fast, it's going to be hard to have a hard time. You're going to have a hard time stopping it, basically. I don't think I'll have time to add that extra beautiful detail at the end of having that arm really yank. I might add it with a layer, potentially. It's a really great thing to add with a layer. But I really like, there's two things that happen here. One, I made that arm feel a little bit heavier. Two, it's no longer twinning with that other arm, because you can see the other arm is free to move around a lot more. Now I'm going to add a little bit more drag and stuff on the elbows, because I just think it'll look better. But notice right off the bat, at least I've kind of broken up the symmetry. Twinning, for those who might not know that term, is when two arms or two legs feel too symmetrical and they just feel like they're just twinning. They're doing the same thing, and that's very unnatural. We tend to have a lot more asymmetry built into our movement as humans, so we'd like to try to avoid it at all costs, basically. So let's just focus a little energy on that other arm just to kind of get her done. Let's take a look here what we need to do to it. Probably some similar stuff. So yeah, so what I'm going to do here is just add some breakdowns, basically. There's already a breakdown here, but I wasn't animating the elbow. Clearly, it just looks like the elbow was neglected on both these arms. So I can actually sort of do this with the arm, so I can feel like I drive a little bit here, and I'll even move this a little earlier so that it feels like I'm bending. I'm favoring the elbow movement. So it's like it's really helping drive that arm forward, which really helps sell that movement a little bit better. Makes it feel a little bit more more natural. I don't think I need the arm up quite so high. It looks a little silly. So I'll bring that down a little bit. And I'll turn it a little bit too to kind of get it already in that. Okay. And then probably a little bit too fast coming back this way. So what I'll do is I'll probably try to pull it out a little bit like this. And then probably do this. Oh no, that's not so bad what I had there before. It's just a little bit too much. Bring it back a little bit. And then over here, just I don't like the arc of that movement right now. So it feels like it kind of, I'm watching the wrist. It kind of swings forward, which is good. And it kind of comes out and then it comes back in a bit too soon. And I think that's just a matter of needing to have a breakdown here, I think. So if I were to do something like this, maybe. Yeah, it's better. Oh, not quite better. Feels a little bit stiff. Bring it up like this, maybe. There we go. I'm just looking for making it feel like there's a continuation to the movement. I'm just following that arc. What you don't want to see with your eyes are little snags. Oh, is my camera in the way? Is this better? Yeah. All right. So basically what I'm doing with my eyes here, and a lot of people have different techniques for this. You know, some people will use the anim paths to help see this. Sometimes people use onion skinning. My eyes are pretty good at just sort of seeing it by just scrubbing and looking at what my wrist is doing. Basically, I'm looking for continuation of movement, and I'm looking for smooth arcs. is basically what I'm looking to do. When I'm looking for that wrist to do, because I'm looking for something that just feels like there's kind of a continuity to the movement. So I can see right here there's a weird continuity movement, because you can see how the elbow is bringing the wrist kind of bang like this, and then it kind of just gets snagged here a little bit. So let's see if we can maybe add a breakdown to make it feel like this shoulder moves a little sooner, to sort of feel like it's maybe a bit of a breakdown to make it feel like it's inheriting some of that rotation. See if I can make that feel a little bit smoother there. No, that feels pretty ugly. So what do I need to do here to make that feel better? I think it just needs to be, I think I was in the right path. I just probably not, just added maybe a bit too much, maybe. This doesn't make any sense though. What's going on here? There's something going on with the curve. Because see how it pops in this one frame here? I have a feeling there's something going on in my graph editor. Let's take a look. So what rotation are we dealing with here? This also could be an Euler garbage lock that we're dealing with here, which is always fun. Rotate Y. Interesting. Because I was swinging backwards, and now I want to start swinging forwards. And this is the problem right here. So I don't know why. Yeah, so look, it was stretched out. I don't remember doing that though. But see, my eye caught that. My eye caught the fact that it was kind of like, why is it? It just feels like it's locked, and then in one frame it pops, because that's exactly what the graph editor is telling it to do. So trust your eyes, and always take a look in the graph editor. Graph editor for me, I don't spend a lot of time in the graph editor unless I'm breaking things down or if adding moving holds. But the main reason I use a graph editor is to diagnose problems. My eye will pick up on something, and then I will sort of come up with a theory as to what might be happening, and then I'm going to go in and diagnose. And there was my problem right there. So this is going to feel a lot better now. Hopefully. That still feels a little bit chunky though, interestingly. Shouldn't. It's definitely got some decent rotation now. But it visibly looks like that. Well, it's better now though. That's for sure. If I look at it from the front here, another kind of view, still feels a little bit, kind of gets stuck right in here, which is kind of driving me nuts. And it just sort of pops right here, which is just poop. I think one of the problems might be this too. I should check the other axes on that shoulder, because there's a good chance that it's got similar issues here. I think what we're dealing with is definitely some Euler wrapping too, because you take a look at these values, they're all kind of all over the place right now. So, oh, there's the problem right there. Oh boy, I don't know how that. Yeah, there we go. That's better. I really don't remember adding, like, stretching out tangents on the shoulders. That's very weird. There we go. Now it doesn't feel so sticky. So it was sticky because my curve was making it sticky. Still not liking it. Still feels weird. I think I'm over cranking this. It's a little bit heavy-handed. That's part of my problem. Because it feels like that arm is moving and I'm not getting enough movement on the upper body. Like, it just feels like it's moving on its own. So that's part of the problem, I think. It's better. It's not great, but it's better. So let's take a closer look at the rest of it though, because it comes up and then drops down. And let's just make sure that we're doing the elbow thing properly. Like right here, for instance, I would imagine we would want a lot more bend on the elbow. And then we would want probably a little bit more of a snap back here. And we probably want that being a little bit delayed. And then we want this to be a hell of a lot more calm. Maybe just delete it. There we go. It's better, a little bit better. And there's, I mean, I know that the ending is too abrupt. Like it just, the whole body just stops moving. Naturally, I would sort of make that feel a little bit more, organic. This is one of the things I find, interestingly, one of the, a sign of a really great animator is someone who is, yes, knows how to move something, but you know what the real tricky thing is? Knowing how to stop something. Getting the animation of a character to feel like it comes to a natural rest is so it's so deceptively difficult. And I really recommend those out there that are practicing and, you know, animating to spend time there. Spend time focusing just on the on settling a movement, because it teaches you so much about how a body comes to rest, and it puts a big focus on gravity. You really kind of have to connect with the force of gravity, because gravity and friction, all these other really interesting details are really starting to sort of show themselves only when a body kind of comes to rest and becomes a little bit more loose. And I'm not really doing a very good sales job on that with this animation. It's, you know, it's on its way, because at least what you're seeing is a bit of a bounce kind of and a settle. A lot of animations in video games end up just being kind of like the animation just kind of stops. And that's often because the designers are pushing for, don't make the animations too long, because the player wants to get control back of the character. And the conversation shouldn't be making the animation shorter. The conversation should be, how do we find a way of allowing the player's input to interrupt the animation, as opposed to the animation sticking the player and making them feel frustrated that they can't control. If I had $1 every single time that I had to sit down and have a serious intervention with the designers and the engineers on this topic, I would be very, very rich. It's because it just, for some reason, people don't think, oh yeah, maybe we can have our cake and eat it too. And a lot of animation departments just sort of get beaten into submission, and the animations suffer, and they don't need to. Animation in video games is all about finding a way of balancing between the two things, as opposed to letting any one particular sort of aspect of the game, you know, take full precedent. Yes, of course, the game needs to be fun, and it needs to be the controls need to be pleasant, but but it shouldn't be at the sacrifice of making the animations look terrible. There's a lot of really great solutions that allow great animation to coexist with really great mechanics, but you do need to think a little harder, and you do need the right people to be willing to take that effort, the extra effort to get there. And some companies are a bit more renowned for it than others. So settle animations, very important. You should practice the hell out of them. I think the best way is to study it. The best way of studying animation in general is to just, you got to use reference. You got to use video reference. You can shoot a lot of reference and then try to execute on that, and try to rebuild it, reverse engineer it. I would really highly suggest you take a look at this learning path in its entirety, because it literally will give you everything you need. I think, because it starts with a video reference. I teach you how to break down the video reference into the poses, and then we just kind of take our way all the way through. And I really think that you're going to learn a ton by examining real movement, and breaking it down and understanding it. And so how to come to a rest, it depends on the situation. It's all about context. Is the person coming to a relaxing rest? Are they coming to an abrupt rest where they're trying to get really quickly back into a kind of more of a fighting pose? There's just so many variables that will determine how to do it. The best way to do it is just to sort of shoot different references that show those different sort of approaches, and then understand the differences, and just study it like as if you're a scientist, basically, and break it down and try to recreate it. So where was I? So the arm is looking kind of okay now. The arms definitely don't twin anymore, which is great. There's a little bit of twinning at the end as they sort of shoot down together, but I mean, that's normal, and they don't settle at the same. If we slow this down, you can see how they're kind of a little offset from one another. See that? You can see that they're not moving exactly the same. That's all you really need in order to get the to defeat the twinning problem, is just to just make sure that things are just not completely visibly mirrored. Okay, well, we're kind of running out of time. I do like what I did there. I think it's, it's definitely an improvement. What I'm going to do now, though, is play with some layers really quickly for maybe about 10 minutes, just to see if I can, what I can get away with layers, because we have a basic, very vanilla looking animation that works pretty well. But what if we wanted to change the beginning and end pose a little bit? How would we do that? Well, I would do that with an animation layer. I think it'd be the easiest and fastest. So what I will do is, I think I'm gonna grab all of the controllers. This is something I really don't like, the way that Maya does this, because Maya, you have to like make a layer and you have to assign things to the layer. Motion Builder, I think, is a way better approach, where you just make a layer and everything's automatically assigned to it. So it's great. You don't need to set keys on that object for that layer, but the layer's there. Super available to any part of the character. I just find it really irritating to have to do that extra step. So what I'm going to do is right click and say select objects here. So I have all the controllers, and I'm going to make an go to the anim tab here, the anim layer tab, and just hit this button here, which is going to make a layer. And it's going to assign all the objects currently selected to that layer. So now I don't have to worry about which ones I have selected. I'm just going to have them all on it. So now that I have them all on it, I can just freely start setting a key here at this first frame. All right. And maybe making the character a little bit more dynamic, the pose. I won't be able to go too crazy with it, but I certainly should be able to do something a little bit more interesting than what I currently have. So how about I go and let's see what would happen if I did this. I'm going to actually go ahead and just select all those objects again. Select the objects. And I will set a key right off the bat. Oop, I hit K instead of S. I'm thinking like I'm in Motion Builder. All right. So now that I have that key set in there, now I can just go tweak this whatever way I want. I'm just going to go and bring this down a teeny little bit. The legs are going to be the biggest problem, because the IK is going to be a little bit problematic. Probably. They're probably going to want to pop a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this foot out a little bit. Grab this guy a little bit like this as well. And I'll bring this one back in, actually. I'm going to kind of blade the stance a little teeny bit. Give it a little bit of twist. I'm going to grab this controller here. Okay, a little bit of, so let me just add a little bit of, I think this one here was what I could basically use. And I'm just going to shift the weight a little bit more onto this other foot here. Like this, just to give it a bit more attitude. It's too much bend in the knees. There we go. So you can see right off the bat, that's a much more interesting pose, right? Now, I wasn't pushing for a really interesting pose when I started this whole exercise, if you remember. It was intentionally kept simple. Sort of like as if the character, she's standing almost in a kind of a salute-like pose. Now it's much more casual, which is pretty cool, I think. I can also drop these shoulders because they feel a little bit high, considering how casual she feels right now. So let's drop that down. And so now I can just grab all of, I have auto key on, so that's why I keyed first. If you noticed, I selected everything and made a key. That way with auto key, now I could just adjust the pose and know that the changes are just being keyed in automatically. So if I were to hit play, what's going to be interesting is the whole animation is going to play and it's going to look a little bit weird. As you can see here, look, it's a little bit twisted, right? Because what's happened is basically what's happening on a layer is it's adding to the existing animation. It's just addition. It's literally plussing values on top of what's there on the base layer. Okay. And so basically what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to have to blend that off so that it's not staying the entire time. So watch this. I'm going to go, and as she gets down into this pose here, right around here probably, I'm going to select all these objects again, select objects. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit there's a button up here with a 0. What that's going to do, it says 0 key layer. Basically, when I hit 0, you'll notice, oh, I can't do that for everything. I should undo that. Well, I could do it again just so you can see what's happening. Basically, all the objects I've selected, what it's done is it's removed, it's set a key where all those controllers have no offset on this layer. So basically I've turned off that offset that I had here. So I'm going to do that, but I'm not going to do it for everything, as I wanted everything, probably everything except for the feet, probably, because I want to keep the feet. Otherwise they're just going to look like they're sliding. So let me do this again. I'll select all the objects, but then I'll unselect basically these things here that I know I want to keep, and probably the knees as well. And then I'll hit the 0. So there you go. So what you'll notice now is as she goes down, I'm blending off that offset, right? I right now it's kind of a little bit late, but I could also, if I wanted to, have blend it off a little bit earlier if I wanted to. Like I can move this key like here, so you're gonna start to feel like she kind of sort of centers herself before she gets down. You know, it depends on what you're looking for. It's nice because it's also adding a little bit of a sense of overlap here, and dynamic sort of things happening between poses, which is nice, rather than just lining it up directly with what's happening. And like I said before, I was suspecting that some of this is going to feel a little bit weird on the legs, because they're spread apart now, so they can't stretch as well. I think it'll probably be okay, but I might want to sort of add some tweaks to that, possibly. And then what I can do is right here, what I can do is I can land. I can, like, maybe right here on the contact, I'll set another key on this layer, but this layer it's sort of zeroed. Actually, what I can do here is do a full, like I'll select all the objects if I wanted to. Why? Select objects. There we go. And I will actually do a 0 here. So even the legs are now zeroed. Okay. So during the jump, but what I need to do here, which is very important, is I need to make sure that I keep this pose here. Okay. On the takeoff here. So that pose there. So what I'm going to do is 409. I'll go back to here, middle click and drag to 409, and then hit S. Okay, so now they should, but why are they doing that? It's interesting. It should be flat. I don't know why they're acting like that. Okay, that's very weird. Something's going on there. Oh, I know why. Yeah, I know why. So we have to be careful when copying poses on layers. Basically, what I want to do is I want to make sure I copy these values, not the poses. So what I need to do is I'm going to, for the feet specifically, I need to make sure that they are staying locked down here. So let me just grab this and this. Basically, because they're the only things that are really moving here that I can't really have, and the knees. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this value here. I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to go right to the takeoff here, the last moment they were on the ground, and I should be able to paste this, and we should be good there, because I don't want them floating, right? I don't know why they're jiggling though. That just shouldn't be happening. I don't get that. Why is that happening? That should be, that they shouldn't even be moving there at all. I'm so confused. Let me copy this as well, because that should be a copy. And copy it here. Because technically, yeah, it's this one here I want to copy. So I'm going to copy that here, paste it, and then paste it here as well. I don't know what happened. Something very weird happened. There we go. So you can see that now those legs at least stay anchored. They don't float. And then from here, they can, from this point on, right when they leave the ground, all the way to here, they now blended back to 0. So there's no offset there. That layer offset is no longer there. And now we're right back to what we had before. But now what we can do is, as we kind of land up into this pose here, maybe right around here, I can choose this frame to add a bit of something to this pose, where maybe she lands with a bit more bias, twisted the other way. So I can go and take, let's see, this upper body like this, and I can kind of turn it like this. Right, and let's make sure that that's 0 here. Yep. So it's from this point here to this point here that we're kind of now settling into this other pose. You see how very easy this is? I'm just layering on top of stuff. I'm just like, there's not a lot of work going on here. It's just basically offsets of poses. And what's important is, as you offset, you just have to make sure that you're only allowing that offset to happen when it can. Like, that's why I had to lock it down here, because otherwise that you'd see the feet sliding into a new position. So they can only really, they can only really start to slide when the feet are on the ground anymore, which is why I made sure it was like keyed all the way up to here in that old pose. The rest of the body was free to be going and sliding around, but not the legs. So yeah, so now I can basically, in this pose, I can actually kind of even have more of an interesting offset. I can like bring the shoulder back maybe like this, and I can find that arm where I can never find that. There it is. Bring it back, kind of like, something like this. Right? You can see I've added a little bit more of a dynamic situation to that pose there, which was a hell of a lot better than what I had before. The pelvis is a little on the straight side, so we should probably also give a little bit of twist to make it feel like it's contributing to that. There we go. Probably do something with the pelvis as well. Can never find the pelvis. It's a good idea to do a select objects again and just make sure I have a key on everything there so I don't find myself. Okay, good. And then I'll compensate with a little bit of this. Oh, that's a little bit crazy. Probably need to. Right? Something like that, basically. So I was able to make those adjustments on like a macro layer on top of everything. And as you can see, it made a pretty big difference. We have a much more casual, organic, natural looking pose here at the beginning, and something a lot less sort of straight on at the end, a little bit more kind of dynamic with that twist. So definitely don't be scared of layers, my friends. They are your friend. You do need to use them and abuse them, because they are going to make your life a lot easier, and more importantly, make your job a lot more efficient. Because one thing that we forget often, unfortunately, is that it's not just about making great looking art and movement on the job. It's also about kind of doing it in an efficient way. Your employer is making an assumption that you're going to find a direct and efficient way of getting the job done. And make no mistake, there are people that are going to be on the production floor that will be finding those ways. So you should also be finding those ways. And I'm not trying to make it seem like an assembly line, because, you know, if you're working at a good studio, that's not what it's going to feel like. But, you know, you just need to balance things. You can't be working on a shot forever. You need to find a way to get it done in a reasonable amount of time. It was nice hanging out with everybody. Talk to you soon.